Ready to go? Call to order. Meeting of the City of Ames Historic Preservation Commission, Monday, March 7th, special meeting, 2002. Do we have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the January 10th, 2022 minutes. Anybody want to move to approve that?
I have a couple of corrections. Sorry. Okay. On the minutes, page 2, paragraph 4. It's in line 3 and 4. It says eligible under criterion C instead of A is what it should read. It says under A instead of. Anyway, those should be switched. Did you get it? Okay. I don't have the minutes in front of me, so. And then on page 3, paragraph 2, line 4, it says National Register items, I think, and I think it should be properties. That's it. And I have a question about the minutes as well.
Okay.
Do any of the boards or commissions do just action minutes? Are you familiar with those, with their doing them that way?
I know what those are.
Hmm?
I know what those are, actually.
Yeah, I don't know all the discussion that is recorded. I don't know if that's that useful. So,
So are action minutes just a distilled version of the full?
yeah, they don't have every, usually there's what the item is.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if there's a recommendation like from the staff, and then the actual motion and the vote, and that's basically it. I don't know I just wanted to know if that's would be a consideration. If I know it would cut down on staff time, writing minutes.
I don't have anything to be able to address that. I think it would be more Laura that would address that from the way that she received training to do the minutes.
Okay.
But we can certainly ask about that.
Mhm.
And,
There aren't any other
and
commissions that
just
do that.
under the commission discussion next time we can address, what we find
Yeah.
out.
I mean, it's just a
example.
suggestion, an idea. I'm not saying we should do it, but
Same
I
way you
was-
can do agendas, an action agenda kind of a thing, where it has the summary and then the action
Right.
item and da, 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 da.
right, when you have a lot of items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the minutes, you're right, those are easy to read,
Oh, yes.
but we'd have to show.
I will say, though, that going over it, it reminded me of some things, too. It was useful,
Right.
just because in looking at the ordinance revisions and what we discussed last time, it was useful. So I'm not saying we should do away with them by any means, but
Maybe that's a format that we could consider, and as we're trying to present the information, though, as a way to consider it. I mean, it's a long document to go through.
it is. Yeah.
That might be a way to help that along.
Anyway, that's just like I say, that's a suggestion. And
So do we have a motion to approve with the corrections? And can we do that with the suggestions too, or just with the corrections? Maybe we can mention the suggestions down under commission comments. Let's talk about it down there. Okay, so
Yeah.
motion to approve with the corrections.
I move approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 4, public forum. This time is set aside for public comments on topics of concern to the Historic Preservation Commission. Other than those on this agenda, the chairperson may limit each speaker to 5 minutes. Please understand that the commission is not likely to act on comments at this meeting due to requirements of the open meetings law, but may do so at a future meeting. We don't have anyone here in the audience, so number 5, 2021 success and challenges in 2022 work plan for 2021 certified local government CLG annual report.
So I don't have a lot to add to what you have in front of you. I'll just introduce it briefly. So as part of the CLG annual report, they change things up a little bit from year to year. And so at this point in time, they do ask for us to document what we believe are our successes and challenges, and then also to come up with a work plan for the next year. So hopefully you all had a chance to look that over. We probably don't need to go through all of the successes and challenges unless you just want to, or unless you have edits to those things for sure, because you may have additions or corrections or deletions. And then as far as the work plan goes, what I would suggest, I know someone had asked, I think it was Angie had asked about prior work plans. I noticed that the 2020 work plan and the 2021 work plan was almost identical.
Mhm.
But what I would highly recommend is, rather than duplicating either of those, that you keep in mind the Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan goals and action steps. Not to say they don't align, but I think there are some differences. And so the item that's the more important is the Comprehensive Preservation Plan, because that was adopted by council, those actions. And so other actions may not necessarily be supported by them. And in talking internally with our director about ideas moving forward for 2022, I think I mentioned that in the cover sheet of the agenda item. He saw 3 things as being primary. Outreach and education, partly because you have a budget for that is provided by the city council. The CLG grant, because that's been awarded to us until once we get all the paperwork in and get started on it, but that will involve quite a bit of time from the board, and then staff will have some time involved in coordinating between,
Mhm.
with the whole thing. And then the third item he mentioned was to modify the downtown facade grant program. And I think he has something very specific in mind that I mentioned in the agenda item as how that could be modified to better support historic character defining elements in the downtown, given that it's on the National Historic Register.
The facade program, is that what you said?
Yes, the
Okay.
downtown facade program.
Okay.
So a quick example of that, just I don't want to get off on that specific thing too much right now, but an example is in the past, for example, the Octagon has those windows at the top,
Right.
Prismatic.
and they've asked for funding to
Clean.
keep them in good shape,
Yeah.
or where they aren't in good shape, to get them back in good shape. Well, our facade grant program didn't allow funding of that at all. And it actually cost about 3 times the price to fix them as to just replace with something different.
Yeah.
Well, if you replace it with something different, it's not part of the historical character. But if we're not helping to fund it, then we are funding something that maybe we don't want to be funding.
Yeah.
So that's some of the background with the facade grant.
So if I may, so the facade grant program, is it that it only stipulates certain type of work and it just through omission excludes stuff like the replacement of Luxor prismatic glass? I mean, is it that it's is the facade grant program specific to new construction?
Yes,
Okay.
that's how it has been
Yeah.
in the past.
Okay.
Oh,
And so it didn't include any maintenance
Yeah.
or rehabilitation of items.
Existing. Yeah.
So
So
we can get into that more
mhm.
at another meeting, I think. But I just wanted to throw that out there as you're thinking about what that means
Yeah.
Right.
to update the facade grant program.
Of course, the programs got started before we had
the
the
downtown district.
district,
Yes.
right?
That's right.
Do you know what happened to the octagon glass?
It's still there.
Okay.
But there was another building, I think, where they removed some of their
Yeah.
glass. It was next door,
Yeah.
I think. Benjamin Campbell has been the planner working with the downtown facade grant program.
Okay.
And so it might make sense, well, it would make sense for him to come to one of your meetings in the near
Yeah.
future once this is a little bit better understood and defined, to have a discussion with you about the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
Is
But
that-
so that would be the third item that Kelly felt was of importance for 2022. So I'll conclude and let you guys go comment on whatever. Let's go through the successes and challenges first and wrap that up, and then we can move to the work plan.
I have one question. The facade program, is that federal money?
No,
Or is it-
it's city money.
It's city money, okay. Okay.
So Eloise, you were suggesting we go through attachment A? Is
Yes,
that okay.
yes.
Have you guys had a chance to look at this? This is the-
I
Um,
did.
describe the city, county, LUD, and or Historic Preservation Commission's historic preservation planning activities in this calendar year. And this is just a kind of just laying out what we've done in the
Right.
previous. Okay. So have you guys had a chance to look at this? I
looked
mean,
at it, but I didn't bring my laptop.
I thought it looked good.
yeah.
I didn't see any problems with it at all, so.
Did we mention in here the walking tour that we did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was my only. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Or not the walking tour, the building tour. So if this looks accurate, Eloise, do we just approve it, or is that?
Yeah, we can move on to the work plan
Okay.
if you guys are all okay with the first part.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's 8.2. Oh, wait, no. 8 point. No, these are all the same.
The work
It's
plan
18.
is actually
It's on page 4.
on, yeah, my pages aren't numbered. Yes, page 4 is, item 18 is talking about last year's work plan
Mhm.
and an assessment of those items.
Now, is this a CLG report too? This goes along with the CLG annual report.
Yes, this is part of the
Okay.
report.
Mhm.
Any comments on this? No. I looked it over and nothing jumped out at me as being
Okay.
missing.
Well, then the next one would be item 19, which is to develop your 2022 work plan.
Okay. And this is where we would think about those 3 bullets that
Yes.
Kelly recommended.
Okay.
And then, you can look at the structure of how it was in 2021, or you can look at the attachment that has the plan. I'm sorry, I didn't make any extra copies for anybody.
Um,
Um,
I think I'm
Do we-
confused.
you want me to run and make some copies?
Of the 2022 plan that was.
Well, the 2022 plan there's nothing to make a copy of, because that's what we need you guys.
Okay, so the one that's in there with the goals is a 2021 plan.
It was a previous
Correct.
plan.
It was
Yeah.
last year.
Right, it's the
Okay.
2021 work plan. was
Okay,
Under item 18.
Yeah.
okay,
And under item 19 is the part to be drafted. And then following that is the Ames Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan,
Yeah.
goals, objectives, and actions. Yeah.
And that was updated in 2021, but that's been in place for much longer, if I'm not mistaken, because
Right.
I've seen iterations of this over the
Right,
years.
Yeah.
the council
Yeah.
with you guys presented and gave updates and requested them to adopt it. And they, I think, made a few minor changes and adopted it.
so the 2022 plan will not go with the CLG report?
No, it
though,
does
just the
go with
20
the CLG report.
Okay, so that has
And-
to be completed then,
It has to be completed,
okay,
and then the CLG report goes to the council, and then it was due February 28th, so we had to get an extension to the end of March. So basically, we need the work plan finalized by you as we speak. And then it'll go to the council, and then it'll be signed by the mayor, and it'll be submitted to
Okay.
the state.
okay. So what's happened in the past is you kind of follow the same plan
Good.
every year or with a few
Well, we
minor
only
changes?
submitted a work plan for the last couple of years. They didn't
Okay.
require that before.
Okay,
And so the last couple of years, it's been pretty identical. But I think that some of it should probably be updated or eliminated.
Well, I think it was identical, and then the COVID.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
That's okay. It was identical, but it came during the time when we weren't meeting as regularly because of the COVID stuff. We weren't
Right.
as active.
Right.
So it would make sense to be a little, add stuff to it that we haven't had before. How detailed do we need to be, like outreach and education? I mean, some of the things that we've kind of discussed, like maybe doing another tour of the downtown, stuff like that. Do we need to have that like sub bullet points underneath, something like that, of things that we're thinking about, preparing or planning for? Or do we just do these broad outreach and education, modify, things like that? I mean, there's things that we could add to it, you know what I mean? Under outreach and education, it's just so
Yeah.
broad.
Well, and it runs the gamut here. I just, under goal. Sorry,
Well, one thing too is that the city funds the Ames History Museum.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you may have noticed under 8.1, which was page 2, I guess, that we listed out how that funding, what kind of programs and so forth, and claim that as historic preservation activities of the city.
Oh,
yeah.
mm-hmm,
So I would say you could continue to have things that are broad, but if you know specifically some things that you want to be more specific on, you can. I don't know how long it needs to be. I know it was 2 pages, or I guess a little bit more than 1 page in the past. but there's a lot of items there, more than 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some things are really broad, like objective E, ensure the expansion or development of City of Ames property, ensure that the expansion or development of City of Ames property follows appropriate preservation practices. Action step, utilize the expertise of the Ames Historic Preservation Commission. Action step, develop and adopt an historic preservation policy for this, for city properties. I mean, very, very general and somewhat more specific. I mean, do we want to go through these kind of with a fine tooth comb here? And
Well,
um,
I don't think we have a lot of time
Yeah.
to work on this if it has to be submitted.
I think it's unfortunate that we didn't have it on the radar for you back in January.
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
And because with
yeah,
you guys have been so involved in doing subcommittees and so forth, you could have had a subcommittee meet and put a recommendation together.
So-
And I think next year we want to make
Yeah.
sure we do
It-
that in December or January.
Yeah,
Can-
at least.
can we achieve what we want to achieve using this document
I think
as it
we
exists?
can. I think we
Yeah.
probably can to get something to move forward.
Yeah.
I think it's okay too. I had a few things that I think needed to be cleared up in the 2021 plan.
Okay.
And I think one addition that should be in there under, and I'm not sure what, let me address that because I might forget it, but to apply for another CLG grant in the next grant year. I think that should be under one of the goals.
That'll be before you get this one completed, right?
Right.
Yes, yeah, that would be the next grant cycle would be in the fall. We would have to have write a grant in August of this
For the
year.
summer.
So
Yeah.
I think
Did
that,
you have an idea about where it would fit under here?
well,
I mean, I could,
no, because I don't have it.
I mean, I think there's,
Okay, this is not the document I need. I need the
Outreach?
2021.
well, I was even thinking, yeah, goal number 2, promote the preservation of historically, architecturally, and archaeologically.
So can I interrupt a second? I have an idea that I meant to mention, a little bit different from what you're talking about, Mary Jo, but when I look at the comprehensive historic preservation plan, and I think about you guys' comments on chapter 31 and the idea of the design guidelines, there are a couple of action steps in there talking about informational graphics to assist with the design guidelines. It's right here.
Right,
It's talking about a supplemental item that would be informational graphics. And that is something you could apply for a grant for that kind of thing. It would be different than the current grant, but it might be in line with where you're trying to go. But
Well,
it
that's, I
is
think,
supported by the preservation plan.
That is exactly, I think, the line
right.
we're going for.
Yeah, but I think the actual writing of the grant needs to be in the plan. I think that is what we're thinking about applying a grant for, is to complete that kind of a project. But I just think it needs to be, applying for the grant needs to be an act.
Task.
An action.
An action step.
Yeah. I
And
think it keeps us a little more on track too, as we're working on this current grant. We have other balls that we want to keep in the air and make sure they get the progress that they need. Modifying the facade project for Main Street would be good, but that also having another commission member who represents the Main Street would be very helpful in our discussions and as we're going forward. And applying for a design guideline grant, because we know from the list of grants this year that there were at least 2 grants that were issued to other communities for this very purpose. So I mean, it'd be right in step with what we're trying to do to keep all of this working together.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess it's how much of an action step do we need to do, Eloise, on these,
Well, I would suggest making it a little bit broad
Okay,
so that depending how you end up accomplishing it, it would fit.
so we just kind of mentally keep a tick list of, okay, we want to start talking about this in June so we can set the application in.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we keep it broad, guys, I think we can use the bare bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean use what's already in here?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but we do need, like, I don't think we have anything about the
wouldn't
facade
be under
project or
there.
something.
Yeah, I thought
And
there
it's-
was,
Kelly specifically mentioned that. That probably means
Oh.
something that he sees could have immediate impact.
Mm-mm.
um,
No, there.
I wish
I think it has to be under the, I think it's B.
under what?
I mean,
goal? Goal 2?
goal 2, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
Yeah. Yeah, it would be an objective another objective to apply for. It would be objective D to apply for a certified local government grant.
I'm sorry.
I think,
what
I
did
think
you
it would
say,
be
Mary Jo, about where?
it would be an additional objective under goal 2.
so objective F, because there's a D and an E already.
Oh, okay.
So I guess, can we include an objective F? What would the objective be? How would we phrase that?
Um, just apply for a certified local government grant.
Yeah, that would be an action
In
step,
the-
wouldn't it?
What
maybe-
are they? Association.
to expand the education or something about support the education.
So this next CLG grant would be for, what do we talk about? Would that be for another neighborhood, or would that
No.
be for the design?
Design
guidelines?
guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which then we could break out. I mean, it depends on how it's all structured, but then we could have sub areas like a downtown, different neighborhoods, things like that.
Another thing, we could put it under that other actions. One of the action steps, I can't remember which one. What was the one you read, Eloise? The action step on the guidelines, and was that under education?
Oh, the ones I saw that talked about illustrating were
that's goal 3.
under goal 3, objective B, create handouts that illustrate the intent of the design guidelines. And then the other one was under goal 4, objective B, develop informational graphics to assist the public in understanding and utilizing the design guidelines in chapter 31.
Okay, could we maybe just add to maybe explore the possibility of a grant, a CLG grant to do that? Maybe under that, would that work? Rather than,
So I don't think your work plan should be the entire goals and actions.
The goals and actions you added onto this just for our reference as part of trying to develop the work plan. We're not modifying this. We're just using
Right.
that to extract information. Okay.
Yeah, what about under What about goal 4, objective C? The objective is facilitate the dissemination of historic preservation information. And there's one action step. Could we just add a second action step about applying for a CLG grant to
Right.
develop, lavishly illustrated design guidelines or something?
Okay.
That, I think it could fit
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
a number of objectives. And
Yeah, I think that would be,
Yeah.
just add another action step under that. That looks good.
so could we do that, Eloise? So goal 4, objective C, there's already one action step, but add another one. How do we want to say?
Well-
Something about the illustration, that's for sure.
Yeah, but
You're
also
not-
apply.
You're not going to be revising this document that
Mhm.
is what the council
Yeah.
Right.
approved.
We're embellishing.
Yeah,
But you can define it better for your work plan.
okay.
But
Right.
I'm not clear yet how maybe I should have tried to put something more together as a working document to go off of than flipping these pages back and forth.
Well, I think the 2021 plan applies still. I think it's, all of those are pretty general things that could be continued year to year. But I think since we don't have anything to work on that's different, starting from scratch,
Right.
I think just maybe improving what's in here would work. But
It'll give us a framework.
What about this? What if we go through the 2021 work plan and eliminate anything that doesn't apply?
Sounds
Okay, so the first part, I know my page is number 1, 2, page 4, I think, under 18. It says, maybe I'll read it since some of you don't have it. Educate the public concerning the value and benefit of historic preservation. Okay, that aligns with what the director said.
right.
So facilitate the dissemination of historic preservation information, collaborate with the Ames History Museum and Iowa State University on resources and possible joint projects. Laura, you don't need to type all this in because it's there. Explore new ways to involve Iowa State University students in historic preservation for the community. Continue with funding for training commission members and developing educational resources about Ames history and historic resources. Participate in education opportunities afforded by the 2021 Preserve Iowa Summit. And of course, it talked about where it was and when it was for 2021. Continue the Historic Preservation Commission Annual Historic Preservation Awards Program and present awards with the mayor at the city council meeting in April or May. Continue to recognize May as Preservation Month with proclamation by city council. Seek speakers for presentations of timely preservation topics in Ames. Seek membership in the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. So, are there any deletions to any of those things?
Is there any way to, is this like a good sentence here about involving the Iowa State students in historic preservation? Perhaps bringing up that idea of the design guide there? I'm just,
So maybe,
I couldn't hear you, Edie.
that's okay. Well, I'm just kind of mumbling. That second sentence there under the first bullet point. Explore new ways to involve Iowa State University students in historic preservation for the community. I don't know if that's where we want to talk about involving them in the design guide, creating the design guide, or if we just want to put that sentence elsewhere.
yeah,
We're going to be participating in the grant.
yeah.
Or do we just leave it as it is
Well,
and
maybe,
let it be vague?
well, the way it is now would capture
Yeah.
any number of projects, but if we want to, we could certainly call out the CLG grant and the design guidelines, or the
I
survey.
think that would fit under another category.
Okay.
well, since we have a project where we're involving them, maybe we could just say continue to explore new ways.
Yeah.
That would bring it up to date.
Or you could just say involved Iowa States and don't say new ways.
Okay.
Mhm.
That'd
Yeah,
be even more
that'd be good.
broad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just involve Iowa State students.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's move on. Can we move on?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, promote the economic development and vitality of the city through historic preservation. That's the topic. Partner with Ames Main Street to offer a presentation on the use of tax credits available for properties in both the Old Town District and the Ames Main Street Historic District. Continue granting certificates of appropriateness in a timely manner. Make resources readily available to enable the public to be more aware and compliance more easily understood with design guidelines and design standards. Design and install 2 permanent signs on either end of Main Street showing before and now views of our historic Main Street as funding becomes available.
Is that ever going to happen?
I-
Funding? I'm suggesting eliminating that.
Yeah, it's very specific, and I mean,
Mhm.
you're talking about the third bullet there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it might make sense. I'm sorry, I just jump in and say what I think. So
That's good.
not probably according to Robert's rules. Partner with Ames Main Street if the design guidelines are changing for the Facade Grant program. That might be a good time to offer a presentation or some more information about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so you maybe could change that to be a little bit more broad or to talk about the Facade Grant program.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that probably should be another bullet to work with the staff on the on the facade improvement grants for, I don't know how to word it, but
Well, should we strike that third bullet? And so I guess strike the third bullet and then maybe,
put something in there about.
yeah, I mean, we're not really continuing to work with them. So maybe establish a working relationship with the Main Street program to, I don't know, to draw attention to, help me out here.
Well,
I'm not,
just to something about the facade easement
Yeah.
program specifically, I think, since that's been a direction that the head of department is suggesting, I think it's a good one, and I think that that would fit in. That would fit
Main
there.
Street to modify, I mean, just say, basically, to modify and update the downtown facade program.
yeah. Do we actually work with them to modify the?
I don't
ordinance?
think we'll be working with
Yeah.
them to modify
Okay,
it. I think
okay.
it'll
We work
be
with staff then.
a recommendation that's then taken to council
Okay,
and they may have they would have opportunity to
Yeah.
comment.
gotcha.
So is there a Main Street group that administers that program, the facade?
No,
Grant.
staff administers it.
Okay, so it would be the
So
staff
just
that we
the
would be
staff.
working with
Right.
to put forth some guidelines or to change the
Yeah.
program
I
to
think
focus
staff's
on
going to
historic.
make some recommendations to you guys to approve is what
Okay.
I think is probably how it'll
So do we?
flesh out.
Yeah. So we don't need a bullet or an action step for that, do we? Or if it's.
Well,
gonna-
I thought you might want to
Yeah.
offer a presentation on the amended
Yeah.
design guidelines.
To Main Street.
Uh-huh.
And,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
how about promote revised facade easement program and guidelines to Main Street Cultural District or whatever the name is, and property owners within the National Register District. The Ames, whatever the name of the downtown
The
district is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And let's
the-
call it downtown facade.
Yeah, just so
and
there's no
not Main
confusion about
Street
what district we're
facade.
talking about, but yeah. So I guess, yeah, strike the third bullet and then add that bullet.
Would you keep the first bullet then?
Um,
Or are you revising the first?
oh, I didn't even see that. Well, that's
That's different.
That's different. Yeah, that's tax credit specifically. And so,
Mhm.
and that's both Old Town and Main Street District. So, I mean, the second bullet, I mean, we have to do that, I think, under the ordinance. So um, yeah, and I like the second bullet, the second line, I think is especially important. This is that issue we've had with, property owners in the district not knowing what the rules are for design
Part of our
guidelines.
education.
Yeah.
So are you planning to do a presentation of tax credits this year then?
We might. I don't know. We talked about a potential another walking tour.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if not us, I mean, I think we could certainly handle it. I mean, we have people that have done tax credit work. We have people that have been on the government side of things, and there are certainly architects here who could also, I think, step up and help us with this. And the SHPO would as well, if we asked.
Okay.
So I think that's, I think anything we can do to promote the federal and the state tax credits, especially in the downtown district,
And
is,
wouldn't that go hand in hand with the facade program
Yeah.
too?
yeah.
So
Um,
All right, ready to move on to the next one?
Sure.
So the next one says complete review of Chapter 31 of the Ames Municipal Code adopted in 2015. Review current procedures for obtaining a certificate of appropriateness. Convey text amendments to City Council for consideration. So I know there was a lot of discussion back in January. Ray had some comments about the Chapter 31. When I look at the Historic Preservation Plan, I think the intent, I could be wrong with this, but I think the intent of reviewing Chapter 1 wasn't to necessarily amend it, but to become familiar with it. So, because if you haven't read it for a while, it's helpful for you to know what's in there and to review it. And then if there was something that was blatantly in opposition, to something that did absolutely need to be changed, then that would be different than, I don't think the intent of reviewing Chapter 31 maybe was to redo Chapter 31. So, and I know you guys have spent a lot of time on that already. So it's my understanding that council isn't interested in redoing Chapter 31 and that planning and housing director is not interested in redoing it because it was just adopted in 2015 and there's other things that need more attention, I guess is what I would say.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
my view on that is I think we have a valid reason for making the changes. I don't know who did the one that was adopted in 2016, but I think the ordinance is very poorly worded and I think it's confusing and in some cases, just not correct. And I think it needs a major overhaul. And I think the commission has the valid reasons for, I think we've kind of backed off on any substantive changes. So it's really just to clear some things up, make it easier for everyone, staff, the commission, and the public in understanding it. I mean, when I read through it word by word, I just kept thinking whoever wrote this did not have any experience administering a program in a city. But I don't know if you had a consultant do it or who did it, but I think it's just really, I mean, it's the basis of the historic preservation program. And if we don't have a strong foundation in our ordinance, I just think we're going to be in trouble down the road.
And my concern too is, and I would agree with Mary Jo, but I think if we're going to build out other aspects of the preservation program, like the design guidelines, those obviously have to point back to the ordinance at some point.
Mhm.
And I would hate to kind of perpetuate the problems in chapter 31 that kind of find their way into the design guidelines and other aspects of what we're charged with doing. I understand, as I suspect we all do, that you can't just go back to these ordinances on a yearly basis and tweak them. And
Rewrite.
right. But, I think as Mary Jo said, I mean, these are not substantive. I mean, a few are, I think, but they're mainly points of clarification.
Mhm.
They're changes that are intended to clarify and, stave off problems before they happen. I think that's kind of the goal here.
I think since 2015, we've certainly seen some expansion of a lot of our historic preservation values here in the
Right.
community with the Main Street District now, and then we're going to be doing another survey and stuff. And so in keeping with these expansions, we need to be sure, like you said, all of what this current work does points back to the ordinance, that
Yeah.
we obviously have some confusion, need some clarification. So not a wholesale rewrite, but definitely some tweaking.
And I think there are also some action items or objectives that are in the 21 plan that fit in terms of ordinance revisions. Just going through them real quick. I think it mentions review process for obtaining certificate of appropriateness, or when that gets engaged. Materials like green or eco-friendly building materials, support investment in the district like infill type. So those were the three that just I found right away, and then also the design guidelines for downtown. So maybe those would be on more of the substantive side of things, but
Well,
At least
I
those
think
elements would be
just rewording in some instances will fix it. A substantive change would be like adding National Register properties under
Local.
certificate of appropriateness review. But I think that, to me, I think there's strong basis in the plans in what city council has adopted for making the ordinance more user-friendly. I think there's plenty of things that the council has in the comprehensive plan, making it more readable and correcting it. Seems to me that it fits in with major goals that are outside of just our program, but within the planning and the city's goals. So I just don't think I don't understand the director and the council just saying, no, we're not going to change it when there's obviously something's not as good as it could be. And I think as long as you've got the commission that has the background, I mean, to me, it's not, I mean, if it was adopted in 2016, it's 2022, that's over 5 years. And that's not unreasonable to look at it again. So I wish we somehow could get at least the director's, planning director's support in doing something with it.
I mean, would it be advantageous to sit, are you talking about Kelly, right?
Right.
And would it be advantageous for Kelly to sit down with this group and we could kind of go over the changes that we're thinking, so there's no,
Well, I think probably we will get to that point.
okay.
Just on the work plan, do you want to keep this then as it's worded here, or do you want to amend it?
Well, could we just
Clarify maybe?
maybe explore explore revisions to the chapter 31 to make it more user-friendly would be pretty general. I don't know, something like that, but maybe
Yeah, I mean-
elaborate a little on that.
I think it is all about clarity, and it's about promoting programs that, will have, if they're done well, positive economic impacts on the city of Ames. I mean, I think there's every reason in the world for us to try to streamline and make this process easier. And so I don't know how to phrase that. I mean, if it just means we start working internally with the city planning staff and then from there going up to the council, I mean, I don't know the best way to go about doing that, but I do think it is worthwhile for us to look at, to argue for these changes, because it has been over 5 years since we've made
There's
any
just some
changes.
flat out
Yeah.
things that don't make sense that, that I think were just, one of those things that were glossed over at one
Yeah.
time, that it would be nothing to edit it in that regard.
So looking at what's here, there's 2 bullet points,
I think.
which I think the 2 bullet points are still good. I think if we added a first one that says maybe review the chapter 31 for clarity and conciseness, and then we would review the procedures for the
convey the-
certificate of appropriateness, which is part of that, and then we convey those amendments or suggested
Right.
Yeah.
changes to the city council.
So would they be revisions or amendments
Could be proposed
to,
revisions.
rather than conveying text amendments? Would it be text
Some of them
revisions?
may be amendments and some of them may be revisions.
You just say
Well,
proposed.
just so you know, it's always a text amendment.
Okay.
Okay,
Ah,
even if it's a changes A
Any
to
change.
N.
If you're changing the code, it is an amendment.
Okay.
Whether it's a spelling correction or what, right? Okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
so amendment it is.
okay, that's,
That helps.
So is it implicit in the second bullet, convey text amendments to the city council for consideration?
I think
Is it-
Edie's right there. Go ahead.
I mean, is it implied in that we would go work with city staff? I mean, do we need to call that out, or, I mean, we're not obviously going to take this to city council on our own. It's going to be with your guys' help. What were you saying?
No, I was saying, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think it's implied that we'd be working with
Yeah.
city staff. on
that's
that.
amendments to the city
But I like
council.
Edie's order of maybe having a dot at the beginning that says, to review for clarity and
conciseness.
there you go.
Yeah, that's probably general enough. That
Yeah,
probably does cover it.
And then we've already reviewed the procedures, we've done that. And our next thing is that now we're going to convey it. And that's who we work with, staff, to convey it to city council.
And so I'll just mention that, remember that the staff, planning and housing staff, our time is determined by the priorities of the city council,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which they went through in February.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if this is something you guys want to move forward at this point in time, I don't think there's going to be staff time to work with you on it as an independent project.
Mhm.
Okay,
But doesn't mean you, if you're, it sounds like you're pretty convinced, and so maybe you keep working on it and massaging it to a point, and then you could, present it to
Yeah.
council through a letter or
Yeah.
something, and see if the council won't decide it's something to direct staff involvement on.
I think if we do things like on the facade project, and if we're working on the grant, we're gonna find, when we're working on the modification of the facade program, and we're working on this current grant, we're gonna find that looking back, and then with certificates of appropriateness that are coming through, we're gonna find that we're gonna be butting heads with the ordinance. And that's where we're gonna have to point out, oh, for example, here's where, we really could use some clarification in verbiage, or some further expansion of information, what is meant by this in the ordinance. And I think that's what we're just going to have to document this as we go
Yeah,
to demonstrate that
Yeah.
yeah.
it's something that
Well-
is impeding our progress to do
Right.
what our commission
Yeah.
duties are.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well-
so just to say, the way this city works is we work with the code all the time, the zoning code, subdivision code, not as much with the historic preservation code, or not everybody in planning does. But if we find mistakes or things that need clarification, generally we don't take it to council and say, hey, here's an amendment, this needs to be fixed.
Right.
What happens is maybe you have a property and it becomes clear that there's something in the code that is preventing you from doing what you would like to do on your property. And you write a letter to the council saying, hey, for example, there's somebody in the general industrial area that wants to do a flag lot. And there was some discrepancy in the code as to what the street distance had to be for the flag lot.
Mhm.
And so he wrote a letter saying, I would like to do this, but there's some discrepancy in the code as to how to proceed. And please consider doing a text amendment to the code so I can proceed to do this. And so he wrote a letter, then the council talked about the letter, and they said, okay, staff, write a report and bring it back to us, giving us some more information, broader information about the situation. They got the staff report and they said, okay, we support this person requesting a text amendment. It was all of those preliminary steps, direction by council, before staff can proceed to take something forward, or for somebody in the public to take something forward that's a text amendment.
Okay,
So that's the process.
gotcha.
So maybe doing what you said, Susan, during the course of things, and then maybe over time you can get to where you want to be.
I think so, for now. I think it's how we're going to have to proceed, because we have things immediately on our plate that we're going to be dealing with. And we've already noted some of the sticky points, and we'll just keep that up as a running thing. And when we need to write the letter, we write the letter
So would
to
you,
you all.
yeah, would you recommend that as we come across changes that we think need to be made, just kind of hold on to them and gather them and then do a single letter, or do them kind of one off does it
No, a
really
single
matter?
letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Single letter, and I mean, you can continue to work as your subcommittee or whatever to
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're kind of discussing item 6 here.
Yeah.
Which we shouldn't have to discuss it later, but my idea was just to kind of every meeting devote a little bit of time to go through maybe a section or parts of it. Just plan on doing it every meeting this year and just see how far we get on it. And then when we are satisfied with it, I guess, and we could write a letter to council pointing out the justification for making all the changes and the problems that that the current ordinance has. But I think if it's just going to take a long time. I mean, I'm not thinking this is going to be in 6 months. It's just going to be a long process. But I think it'll be good for us just so we'll thoroughly understand the ordinance too and if there's new members on the commission. So I think it's worthwhile for us to keep focusing on it, but not with an idea that we're going to make a deadline for when we're going to do this.
Right.
But
Is it possible to have like a little mini work sessions in our agenda? We already have the dates on our calendars, to meet once a month. And then just have a little designated time on our agenda to go over a section of the code.
right,
Yeah.
just go a manageable section. I mean, I
Yeah.
can, the committee can kind of set up a schedule for how we're,
Certain bites of it to
Yeah.
review and say, here's some things for everybody to look at, kind of point it in. That way, if we look at it before the meeting and then we have a little mini work session, we can kind of all be up on the same page at least
Mhm.
of why certain things. Does that work out for agenda structure?
I think so. I think you can request on the agenda whatever you want.
Okay,
And then but you would be the ones to supply
right,
the documentation ahead of time.
sure.
Mhm.
And then we go from there. And I know that there was a request to have the CLG grant on the agenda so we could have updates too.
Yeah,
So,
that's
Mhm.
another one that.
so there's one more item
Okay.
on the 2021 work plan. Continue to use the Ames Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan as a working document. Implement action steps with the support of City Council. Conduct surveys of historic resources with the support of City Council and grant funding. And then if you wanted to add anything additionally that wasn't covered.
Those are both very broad. I think, trying to think, is there anything we want to do that aren't, anything that isn't covered under
No,
those?
and we've covered
two?
all of these things that
Yeah,
Kelly brought up, so I think.
yeah.
I can't think of anything right now.
You guys, I think we're good. You good with that one? Can you think of anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think we're,
So what I'll do is listen to the minutes so I make sure hear everything, and revise the work plan, and I will send it out to you in the next few days or this week, I guess I'd say. And then if there's something I didn't capture correctly or you think should be reworded, we can float that around since time is so short.
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
thank you, always.
that'll work great.
Yeah, I have one question about the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Yes.
What is in there about historic preservation? Is there a section or?
There's some action steps relating to historic preservation. And one of them does have to do with, I think, incentives
Mhm.
And so the Facade Grant program is an incentive program. So that's one reason that makes sense to move forward with it, is because it is supported under that
Mhm.
action item of the
Exactly.
So,
Ames.
yeah, I think we did, correct me if I'm wrong, Eloise, but I think we did discuss that when the 2040 plan was being developed. I mean,
Yeah, that
what
was
the role.
before I was on the
Yeah,
commission.
yeah, it was a year. I think we had those discussions, and in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, we did, I thought we asked that I don't remember what we asked for, but that it have a more significant presence in that document. I don't remember offhand though what we.
Could we get a copy of that section?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Next-
can
Next meeting, maybe?
point out that information, just email it.
Mhm.
to you.
Okay,
Okay.
that'd be good. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, I know the climate action plan is still in the works, but does preservation have a presence in that as well?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it does have a strong presence, but I haven't been involved with the
Yeah.
details of that at all.
So that's something that we should be aware
Make
of.
ourselves aware
Yeah,
of.
because.
Well, right. It just gives us more
Relevance.
relevance. Yes, exactly. If if we're working to support those other documents and programs, then I think it definitely helps
Yeah.
our program.
Okay, so Eloise, I think we did we kind of touched on number 6 here. Can we bypass that one, or
Mhm.
update on review of
Yeah,
chapter
I think
I
31?
think unless we need to, I mean, I just to get comments on the idea of keeping it going and working on it with the
Yeah.
Have a
subcommittee
standing
and,
agenda item.
yeah, we don't need a
Okay.
motion or anything for that. So.
Number 7, nominations for 2022 Historic Preservation Awards. I think you said we didn't get any, huh?
Nada.
Is it, do you think that's COVID related, or do you think it's,
I think it goes in phases.
yeah,
It's not like we ever get a lot of, and you guys are always open to nominate as well. But if you think about the certificates of appropriateness that came through this year, I think there was only one that was even um, that even had to come before you as a commission.
yeah.
So, I just look ahead to next year and,
Mhm.
if there's, I always send out the PR to
Yeah.
the neighborhood groups,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that, and I know neighborhood groups are something part of education.
Yeah.
And maybe at some point there's something more that could be done that way to help them with historic preservation understanding, or I don't know. Anyway, no, we didn't get any awards this year.
I don't know, I think that's probably going to be something that's up to the commission, just to be aware of things going on that maybe,
Yeah.
I think most people aren't going to pay that much attention to it unless we have a big celebration or something to call attention to it, a big party or something. But I think it's going to be up to the commission to
Nominate. Yeah,
nominate.
we can nominate, correct? I mean, there's
Oh,
no
yeah.
reason. Yeah, I think that,
And so you didn't have your February meeting.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
But next January, you could start thinking about, well, you could be thinking about it all year, but,
Mm-hmm.
Is,
maybe that's part of the solution, is
Yeah.
to have the, either individually you can nominate,
yeah.
or more collectively, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, number 8, CLG grant update. You want to?
Oh, well, let's see. What about the contract? Is that going to go before the council? Did you get that on the agenda? I know you said you were going to try to get it.
Yeah, I thought I emailed you. It's not going tomorrow night.
Okay,
There's no
no,
way to get it on there.
Okay.
So, so the state sent to the mayor a copy of the materials and to you, Mary
Mhm,
Jo,
I
and
got-
maybe to Ray. I'm not sure because he was
Mhm.
out. And so I have to do a staff report that that explains this. And then the mayor will sign it. Then it's sent to the state. Then the state will do their notice to proceed.
Okay.
So it will go to the city council at the next meeting, which will be March 22nd, I think. And then sometime after that, you will get your notice to proceed.
Okay.
Okay. So just for the other commissioners, we're going to meet with 2 students that will probably be involved in the project, as far as we know, on Wednesday. So it's good information. So we don't want to get the project started until after that contract is signed.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. It's just we have 2 seems like very qualified students. They're very interested, and so we just have to work out who does what and to get the project done. And I think everybody knows we have to do a 40% match to the grant. So any commissioners that can be involved, and Ted said he could still be involved even though he's not going to be on the commission, but his hours will count. Any volunteer hours count toward the match. So any questions? I think
What about a camera? Does camera possibility? Does the city or does the department have one of the things we'll need are photos of properties? Can we make use of city or department cameras for doing survey photos?
We had talked about purchasing a camera. I don't know that we have a
Digital?
one that is, I'm not sure if we have what you
Yeah.
want.
Okay.
So so the Park Service has very specific
Stringent, yeah.
rules about what it can't just be a smartphone. It's got to be a lossless file format. It has to be a certain resolution. It needs to be able to produce a certain resolution of photo. But we were also hoping that we could maybe get a camera that geotags each photo, just so that integrating it into a GIS or doing maps later on it would eliminate that step of geocoding those photos.
Do you know for sure that an iPhone does not give that quality?
Oh, well, we have to, the standards have changed over time, and I don't know if we didn't
I
look
don't
at
know
them
what they
recently,
are.
but we'd have to go back and look at them.
I would, because I know my iPhone does really great pictures and it will geotag them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
all there, but I haven't read this.
Yeah, I mean, the Park Service is slow to keep up with technology, and I know for a long time they wanted raw photos or TIFF or lossless JPEGs, and it was very specific. And I don't know if your average phone has those types of formats available, but I mean, we can look into it, more before the project starts. And I have no idea what a camera goes for these days. Would we be allowed to use that grant money to purchase a camera, or?
Well, I think that was a question you had asked
Yeah.
the SHPO folks, and they had said yes.
Yeah,
So, but
typically it is.
if you
yeah.
could investigate that
Yep.
right away,
Yeah.
that I think that would be great.
Okay.
So we have an idea what is needed, because if people can use their phones, that certainly would be.
It'd make it
much
easier.
simpler.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, and the student
Well-
that is doing the photographing maybe would have
Yeah.
that, so.
So, and this is a survey. This is not a nomination.
Right.
So it's
Right.
going to be a lower standard, but we will, we'll investigate that with the SHPO. Anything else on the grant, CLG grant? Number 9, commission comments. Anybody?
Do you want to ask them a question?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about this today, Eloise, but I received my letter from the mayor saying that my term is up. And I think I've served 2 sequential terms, so I don't know if I can serve again. I think that's effective April 1st. So do we need to nominate a chair, a new chair, new vice chair?
That will happen. Elections will be at the next meeting. And when the new members are already in attendance.
Okay,
So you will get 2 new members. Barry has resigned and was able to do so just in time for the mayor to appoint a new person to fill his position.
okay.
So you'll have 2 new members next meeting.
Any chance that somebody's from Main Street District?
I believe that one of the people actually is a resident on Main Street.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So
So I,
it's not a business owner, but it's a resident, I believe.
So I had a question. This is one of the comments that when we went through chapter 31, 31.3, section 2, basically it lays out how long a person can serve on the commission. It concludes with no member who has served 2 full consecutive terms is eligible for reappointment. Is that for life, or is there like I mean, I mean, that's something that in other ordinances that in most other ordinances, all other ordinances that I've read, there's a required hiatus, but then a person can come back. I mean, is that,
I don't know the answer,
okay,
but probably someone else can give me an answer on that,
Okay.
and I can convey it to everyone.
if not for me, I think it's just good for everybody to know that if they plan to come back at some point. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Number 10, staff comments.
Well, I would like to thank you, Ted, for your service.
Thank you.
It feels like there's going to be a big hole with you
Oh.
gone, but I know you'll be helping to volunteer, especially with the
Yeah.
CLG grant,
You'll,
because you were such a part of putting that together with Mary Jo and Susan. And but
You-
thank you for your service.
oh, no,
Really
my pleasure.
appreciate it.
And I asked the question I asked before because down the road, I would like very much to come back if that's at all possible. I think this is actually not just good for me, but good for my students and gives us things to talk about. And so you may not see me here, but you may see me at the lectern or my students addressing.
Oh, that would be great. We would
Yeah.
having some audience.
Yeah, public forum. It's been a pleasure working with. I think the group is really strong right now, and it's a good time for me to leave it. So, and you've been wonderful to work with, as has Ray and you too. So,
And
Thank you,
again, I
guys.
apologize for being late tonight. That was so embarrassing. I had it in my head 7:00 because planning and zoning starts at 7, and I don't know why I didn't.
Well, we're off
Computer
schedule a
correctly.
little bit too,
Yeah.
so
you're a week early.
easy to understand.
So, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.